You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Wednesday evening, folks. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening to my show and watching it, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness. It's Odyssey Radio. Find out all the different outlets where you can find this show. And you can come over to my YouTube channel right now and watch the video simulcast of this program, along with the live chat room going on right now with fellow Intrepids at my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. Come on over, enjoy the chat, enjoy the show, and at the same time, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe for me. And we're supposed to be announcing the new memberships today, and I haven't quite wrapped it up yet, so it'll be tomorrow. I'm pushing us into tomorrow to wrap up all of that stuff for the memberships over at the YouTube channel. But in the meantime, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications of when this show goes live and when we do the odd live stuff over there as well. And, of course, we're every night of the week, Monday through Friday, at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Left Coast. All right, folks, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate all the time that you give to me. Many of you have been here since the beginning, and if you look down at the archives, you'll have 350 hours of shows that I have done over the last year and a half. And so many of you have been here for that whole duration. You've soaked up 350 hours of my blethering. And you don't know how much I appreciate that. So thank you. And by the way, those of you who still donate to what I'm doing, I appreciate you very much. Leslie, I want to say Leslie Holker. She's been there almost every week for the last year, putting little bits and pieces into this show, and I appreciate that. Just received something from you yesterday, and I appreciate the fact that you still do that and that you are a supporter of this show. Thank you very much. And you know what? All the rest of you all can be too. But I'm not going to be like a televangelist and beg for money. I'm just going to let you know what's out there. And again, by tomorrow, I'm pushing it out a day, we're going to announce all the new memberships over here on the YouTube channel. And folks, if you want to get some good gear, there's still some good Christmas stuff over there, and there's still time to pick up some of it. Some of our Christmas designs, our creepy Christmas designs, if you will, freaky Christmas. And that's over at my Etsy page, and that's etsy.com/shop/sonofapatriot. And I'm sure Matt Finn or somebody's going to type that into the chat room right now. And so go over and take a look at all my designs that I've done for all the different topics we cover, and some of my patriotic designs, my Christmas designs, my weird designs, my fun designs. Go over and take a look and avail yourself of that. I just myself this morning ordered a new mug, and it's the Reptilians mug. And so you can go over and take a look at that too. It's in the top row, I think, on that channel. So thank you already for what you're doing. And this morning, I want to get into there's some. I'm gonna cut to the quick. I got some politics I want to talk about, current events as politics pertain to some of our current events, and I want to cover some of that. But at the same time, I want to start off with our Spark Courage. I think this has been kind of a fun little exercise for all of us to take a look at this. This is that little faux matchbox I picked up at a garage sale for like 25 cents or something. And it's 50 ways to be bold. And I think that these are things I know that I look at and I go, wow, this is really cool. I can use some of that. It moves me to action. And so that's what I'm hoping these things do. These are little fake matches in here that have little sayings on them or writings, and they say, here's what you ought to do today. Do this thing to improve your boldness, to bump up your courage levels. And maybe many of us are people who aren't really comfortable with talking to people, aren't really comfortable in expressing our ideas. And, I used to be that way too. And I think there is nothing wrong with bumping up your courage, bumping up your boldness, because that helps you in life altogether. It helps you to move ahead. It helps you gain confidence. It makes you gain confidence in who you are and what you are. And this is where I hinted again to it yesterday or the day before, is that when I talk about not being offended, you've heard me say that before with all the weird political correctness stuff that's out there, and I say, you can't offend me. You know why? Because offense is a choice, and I choose to not be offended by whatever you're saying. Now, when we do that, when we can gain that kind of an outlook on the way things are going, then we know. It's like the whole thing with the Biden election. There are some people out there that want to insist that I am butthurt over the election, that I am some weird, freaky conspiratorialist because I believe that there was election improprieties and that the president should continue to pursue this as far as he can. And people think I'm weird, or I'm my friends on the left think you're weird, you're odd, there's a problem with you, you're one of those weird Trump sycophants. And I'm going to tell you something. Just because I think the election had improprieties and that Joe Biden probably didn't win the election, I can say that from the point of view of saying it's not because I am a Trump sycophant. It is from the point of view that I believe there were improprieties. Now, would I hold that same view if Biden was making the claim and Trump had won? Maybe not, because Trump was my guy. But at the same time, I'd have to be very honest with myself and say, if there's claims of impropriety and there's all these things that look like impropriety took place, then there's probably something to it. Where there is smoke, there is fire. And in this case, if you are a Trump supporter, where there is smoke, it doesn't mean there's fire at all. It means people think you're smoking something weird. So that's my position. But that all ties into the fact that I can take a position like that because I know where I stand. I am confident in what I know. I'm confident in what I believe. That doesn't make me weird or odd or special or anything weird like that. And so this is why I go through these every day, to spark courage. So let me pull one of these, and there you go. There again, there's the matches. I'm just going to reach in here, and I'm going to dig one out of the pile in here. There's one. My fingers are on it. And if it's one we haven't gotten already, we'll do this one. All right, here you go. Can you see that? Can you see what that says? Believe you are worthy. Make a list of your greatest accomplishments. Now, perhaps this coincides very well with what we said yesterday, which was think of the things where you believe you have been brave and make a list of those things, and then go out there and act like that's what you are when you face needing them. And so this is believe that you're worthy. Make a list of your greatest accomplishments. What is it in life that you believe you've accomplished? What are the things that are your great milestones? Where you say, I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done that, and I've done that. List your accomplishments. And it starts off by saying, believe that you're worthy. What does that mean? What is worthiness? Let's look up the definition of worthy. And let's see what it says. Worthy. Worthy. It's having or showing the qualities or the abilities that merit recognition in a specified way. And so this is, here, I want to look up a little different definition. It's having worth or value. It's honorable, meritorious, having sufficient worth or importance. That's being worthy. Do you consider yourself worthy? Do you consider that you are worth something out there? Not just to self, although it's nice to know you're worth something to yourself, but to your family, to your friends, to people out there at large. Do they look at you people who know you and know your deeds and say, that is somebody who is worthy. That is somebody who has prominence because they've made themselves worth something. They have sufficient worth. You can look at some of the synonyms. Just deserving, good, meritorious. The antonyms are no good, undeserving, valueless, and worthless. And if I were to go over and look at thesaurus.com and put in the word worthy, here, let me show you something. Thesaurus.com. Didn't take it the first time I typed it wrong. And if I put in the word worthy, here are other words that you might recognize as well to go along with this. Admirable. Are you an admirable person? Do people look at you and go, I admire you? Field guy. Do people do that to you? Matt Finn. Do people do that to you? I admire you. You're decent. Audrey. Anybody else out there? Is this how people see you? You're decent. You're deserving. You're desirable. You're excellent. And you strive for excellence. You're honest. People, do they pin on you honesty? Is that what they see when they look at you? Laudable. It's a word we don't use much anymore, lauding someone. But are you laudable? Are you noble? Are you reliable? Now there's one we can look at. Do people look at you and go, you're reliable or he's not reliable? There are times where I've had people say, you're not very reliable because I don't get something done that I say I'm going to do. Because sometimes I overload myself and I become unreliable. But are you a reliable person? People look at you and go, I can count on you. Satisfying, true, trustworthy, valuable, worthwhile. And do all these things fit into who you are? First rate, incorrupt, invaluable, meritorious, praiseworthy, precious, pure, reputable, right-minded, righteous, salt of the earth, top drawer, top-notch, virtuous, first class, exemplary, all those things. So, first of all, I'm going to ask you then, do you consider yourself to be somebody who is worthy? And so, as this thing says, in this whole Spark Courage, 50 Ways to Be Bold, believe that you are worthy. See? Believe you are worthy. And that's a belief you have to have in yourself. And many times that's something that comes from recognizing the things that you have done to be worthy to the rest of the world. Make a list of your accomplishments. If I was to ask you to write down the things right now that make you worthy, what are the things that you would list as your accomplishments? Maybe over there in the chat window. If you're in the chat room, start putting down some things that make you worthy because of this accomplishment in your life. If you were to look at that accomplishment, I would look at something like in my own life. I would look at having been a youth director, a youth pastor before, and having worked with kids and having helped kids and stuff. I look at those as, that's a big accomplishment. That's a worthiness issue. That somebody can look at you. That would be on my list. That I was a youth director and I helped kids, high school kids and junior high school kids. And because that was putting myself out for somebody else. Now, it sounds like you're doing an awful lot of patting yourself on the back and building yourself up and tooting your own horn. But sometimes you have to do that. To recognize your own self-worth, sit back sometimes and stop looking at the negatives, because we've all got negatives. We've all got reasons that we can pout and we can moan and we can piss and we can not add up the things that make us worthwhile. We look at the negatives. We look at our health, if it's run down. We look at the fact that we're overweight. We look at divorce that we've had, or bad relationships with parents or children, getting fired from a job, not being able to hold a job. Some of those things are all things, and we tend to take those negatives and they stack up against us. We could, if I asked you right now, list all the things that you think are negatives in your life, You'd probably all be able to come, oh, I got it right here. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3. Man, I can keep going. Oh, wow, I'm up to 13 of them, 14, 15. We can all do that. But now let me ask you to put the brakes on that and set that aside and make a list of all the positive accomplishments you've made this week. Today. I did the dishes today. Is that an accomplishment? Not on the grand scheme of things. But I walked out in the kitchen earlier this morning and I looked at it and it was a mess from last night. And, of course, I always murmur under my breath about, damn kids, they can't even pick up, I've been telling them for years, as little kids up to where they are now, scrape the food off your plate. You don't take a bowl half full of chili and chuck it in the sink and let all that chili float around in with all the other dishes or whatever. But thank goodness they're getting to that age. They are at that age where they can start doing some of these chores. And so I have told them, when I see the sink is full of food, you know how that is when it's full of food, and it's not, you haven't closed the sink, but it's so full of food, no water can get down. So anybody who's come over and run water or rinsed anything, there's buildup of water and all this floaty, sludgy, gross, garbage food is floating in there. And I've made the kids start coming over and, okay, hey, you guys get to clean that out. Now what I do, I just put my hands in, I pull it out and I throw it in the garbage. And you know what I do after that? I rinse my hands off and I wash them. But if it's that way, these kids, they don't even want to touch it. They don't want to go near it. And I see with a spoon or something, he's trying to, ooh, I got to lift that sludge out of there. Nah, use your hands. Just get it out of there. Because you know what? Your hands will wash off. So stuff like that. I look at that and I go, did I have a minor accomplishment this morning? Little tiny daily thing. My accomplishment. I am worthy. I'm worthy to be kept in this house. I am worthy to be a kept man for my wife. I am worthy to be a dad because I do things to maintain us. And they may be small things along the way. Do you have a list of small things? Do you have a list of great accomplishments? Were you in the military? Did you serve in a foreign war? Were you wounded for our country? That's a big thing. Did you achieve something in your job or some recognition for something? What did you accomplish in your life? You accomplished getting a great job because of your reputation. That's an accomplishment. Now, make a list of those things now, today, tonight, and then refer to that list. Keep referring back to that list and say, I'm worthy. I am worthy because I do things and I make life go. I make life work. Now, if you're a slug and pardon me for mentioning it that way or putting it that way, if you're a slug and you just sit on the sofa and you don't do anything and you don't go out and accomplish anything, you don't interact with people, you probably don't have lots of accomplishments. I think maybe you could put a positive spin on that and say, if you were able to get to level 603 of a certain game and you cheered and danced a jig, the only exercise you'd gotten in a week, maybe you can pat yourself on the back and say, I accomplished level 603 of my game. Is that an accomplishment? Maybe. To you. Maybe to the other people you game with. But let me ask you, what have you done to put yourself out there, to get off the sofa, to be somebody? Even if you don't have a job, there are times where we're down, we're depressed, we're discouraged because our jobs aren't working for us. We don't have the revenue coming in the door, this whole COVID thing, the elections, whatever it might be that's driven you down a bit. Nobody can keep you down. We keep ourselves down. You realize that? Now, I understand that there are forms of depression that are chemical. You can't control that. And that happens. But there are forms of depression, discouragement, all of those things because of our reactions to outside stimuli. And I get it too. Trust me. But what should be our attitudes in life? Life is too short to be brought down by the power of anything outside of us. We have the ability from the inside to create ourselves. and be what we want to be. And so, not to be ooh, rah, rah, sis, boom, bah type of, ranting about this kind of stuff, but I want you to start looking at yourself, finding out what makes you worthy, what makes you worthwhile. Make that list. And if you look, it's all there. That stuff is there. We all have things that make us worthwhile. Avoid the negativity. Don't bring up the stuff that makes you what in your eyes is worthless. That's worthless behavior. Do something worthwhile and look at yourself and build yourself up. And I think that's really one of the best ways to spark your courage, to be bold. Boldness comes from knowing you've accomplished something, knowing you've done something, knowing I am worthwhile. And I'm not talking about self-motivational speeches to yourself. I'm talking about knowing that you are worthwhile because of what you do. Maybe you look at somebody else and you go, they've accomplished so much, I'll never be that. And that's negative. That's not working. You got to look at what you bring to the table and how you increase that and how you build your own worth on the basis of that. So there we go. There's my semi-preachifying. It's not religion. Might be a little bit of spirituality mixed in there, but this is all about life. So go out there, be worthwhile, make your list, and congratulate yourself for getting to certain stages and certain milestones in life. And then make it happen. All right, guys. Spark courage for the day. So we've got to go out to break, and I hope you're enjoying these spark courage moments that we're doing. I just started that a few days ago. We've been done 4 or 5 of these, and I'm kind of liking that as a way to start off the show. Now, we have only a finite number of matches here, and it's an exercise for me. Can I pull out one of those matches about how to be bold and how to have courage, and can I speak about it for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes and make sense extemporaneously off the top of my head, looking at my life experience and looking at life around us? Yeah, I think we can all do that. And so it's been a great experiment for me, and I hope you're enjoying these. But let's go out to break. We're going to come back. We're going to hit a couple of current events, and we'll talk about them. We'll see what the chat room has to say as well. So you guys sit tight. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
All right, gang, welcome back. Thanks for sitting on through that break. This is Scotty Roberts. You're watching my show. This is segment 2 for Wednesday night. And I hope you had a good day today, Wednesday. I had a great day. I got to tell you, I will bemoan one thing, however. This up here in the Great White North, the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and we're over the border into Wisconsin. This is probably one of our last hurrahs, I feel, before spring comes. We had, 50 degrees today. I think on my deck it was pushing 60 because of the way the sun hits my deck. And it's December, what is today? Anyway, the 9th? It's December 9th, Wednesday. And we're about, 14 days from Christmas? 15 days from Christmas? Something like that. And I don't do math. And so it's nice to have a December where it's kind of warm like this for a little bit. You feel like in the summertime, when it's 80 and 90 and pushing 100 degrees up here, you walk outside and it's 50, you're going to freeze your butt off. But when we've had 30s and 20s, and we've even been into the teens sometimes, already this fall, not quite winter yet, and you get a 50-degree day, it's like summer. You want to go out in shorts and flip-flops. So it's been nice up here. And by the way, if you don't know it, you're listening to the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com, where it's always sunshiny and warm. And you can come over to my YouTube channel if you're only listening audibly right now. You can come over and see the video simulcast of this show over at my YouTube channel and join the live chat room with a bunch of other Intrepheads, people who love this show. You can go over to youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. Thanks for being here. And now we're going to jump into some current events. And there's something I wanted to mention because, and I think we only touched on this last night. And I've got some information up here in front of me about this Supreme Court ruling that just took place on Tuesday night, or Tuesday afternoon, yesterday. And the Supreme Court denied this pro-Trump bid to nullify the election results in Pennsylvania. And, of course, everybody on the left who's insisting that there should have been no challenge to the election because they got the guy they wanted out is out. And it's anybody. If we'd have voted for President Cabbage, we got President Cabbage now. It's President-elect Cabbage, whoever it was. And so they are, in a partisan way, in a party way, dead set against any kind of challenge that might ever even be able to nullify. And I think it's like the old Shakespeare quote, "Methinks thou dost protest too much." I think the protest from the left shows the fear that they have that there might be some dishonesty uncovered in this election. But the thing they've got going for them is the fact that a lot of the little cases that have been brought up have been denied, have been turned away, they've been dismissed, which really sets them up to go further. But this wasn't the whole case about the election. This was about the Supreme Court denying this bid to nullify the election results in Pennsylvania. And that's all the Republicans were asking for in this bid to the Supreme Court. They were asking for the results to be nullified so they could move on with the rest of the case. And, of course, the Supreme Court, they didn't even write a decision about it. They just said, no, we're not going to hear this case. Boom. That's it. It was that simple. And the U.S. Supreme Court rejected a bid by the Republican allies of President Donald Trump to undo the election results in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. Now, this wasn't Trump doing this. This was Pennsylvania allies. And the Republican state lawmakers had requested that their petition was to be seen by the U.S. Supreme Court, but that it was denied without proving any reasoning or offering any dissent to the order. And the allies of the president had charged that the Republican-controlled legislature had improperly passed an act to allow universal mail-in balloting, which they said was in violation of the state's constitution. And that was denied by the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, which said the challenge was filed too late. That's the only reason the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania turned it down. Oh, it was filed too late. It was a mechanics thing and a process thing. And now the plaintiff's demand before the U.S. Supreme Court was that either more than 2.5 million mail-in ballots be nullified in the election, or that the results of the entire election be nullified. And so lawyers for the state were outraged against the demands from the plaintiffs. Why? They said petitioners ask this court to undertake one of the most dramatic, disruptive invocations of judicial power in the history of the Republic. This is what the state of Pennsylvania said, the lawyers for the defense. No court has ever issued an order nullifying a governor's certification of presidential election results, they went on to say. And the Supreme Court rejected that demand without a hearing. That's the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And they allowed the election results in Pennsylvania to stand. Now, the petition led by the Pennsylvania Representative Mike Kelly and GOP congressional candidate Sean Parnell, this was considered one of the last-ditch efforts to thwart the officially recognized results of the election, and its defeat seriously injures the president's efforts, they say. And the Democratic Governor Tim Wolf has already certified Joe Biden's victory in the state of Pennsylvania. And the state's 20 electors are to meet on December 14th. We're talking 5 days from now. They're going to meet to cast their vote. And whoever wins that electoral vote, that person will be the official president-elect. And now, that's just one case. So what happened in the Supreme Court case yesterday? They denied the case to even be brought to the court. So there was no ruling on the case. They just denied it. And the denial was of a petition to have this, the injunction set against the state of Pennsylvania to certify the results of the election in Pennsylvania. And that would have been a single state. They were going, and the Supreme Court of the United States just didn't want to hear it. Nope, we're not going to hear that case. Now, going on at the same time, if you didn't know this. Now, by the way, that should bring you up to snuff on what this was all about yesterday. Yesterday at the Supreme Court, it was not the Supreme Court. I have a good friend who posts on my Facebook wall, and he continues to represent the challenge by President Trump as frivolous, as narcissistic, as all of these things. And I call him on those, and I say I don't think it has anything to do with those. I think he has a right to do what he's doing, because there are many people out there who aren't just conspiratorialists that believe that something untoward, something, what's the word I'm looking for? Improprietus took place during the election. I believe that. I believe the election was an improper election. I believe that there are things going on behind the scenes with the whole mail-in voting thing that, and you can mark me down as somebody who believes that the election was illegitimate. I don't think Joe Biden won. He won by numbers, but I don't think those numbers are legitimate numbers. There's too many other factors that would say that he didn't win and probably lost miserably. But there was a machinery at play to make sure that Trump was taken out. And why? Is it because Trump was a Republican and Biden was a Democrat? No. I think it had to do with Trump was uncovering a lot of things. If people didn't like him personally, that's okay. You don't have to like the guy. But what he was doing was starting to uncover, he called it the swamp. You can call it whatever you want. He was starting to uncover things. And there were people and things in charge that didn't want that to happen. And so I believe that there was a concerted effort to remove him from office. Probably concerted efforts to assassinate him. For all we know there's been a couple of attempts. They just don't get a lot of press. And over the last couple of years. But here's what you have. And so this is why they are pushing forward. I don't think this is frivolous at all. I don't think there's anything frivolous about it. I think it's a very serious issue. And those who would poo-poo it the most, I want to keep saying, I think you're protesting too much. I think you're more afraid that there's something to it, and he's going to remain in office, and you don't want that to happen. But they're not thinking any deeper than who's in office. They're not thinking of what the reasons are behind all of this. And so Texas is now also suing. They're in 4 battleground states in the Supreme Court over this unlawful election results, is what they're calling it. And that's unlawful election results in the 2020 presidential election. And the key points of all of this are, number one, the Texas Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton on Tuesday, yesterday, filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Supreme Court. And this filing was to invalidate the presidential election results in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan, those 4 states. And now, by the way, some of the critics, my friends on the left, well, why is it only these battleground states? Because this is where it took place. This is where these irregularities took place. So now the second thing is the lawsuit asserts that this unlawful election results in those 4 states, which President-elect Joe Biden won, almost president-elect, should be declared unconstitutional. And there's the big question, well, why? Why should they be unconstitutional? This is the people's will. But remember, again, folks, we're not a democracy. It's not all about just the people's will, although that's part of it. It's about the rules and regulations we have in this constitutionally limited republic that has democracy. So, number 3, the filing argues that those states used the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to unlawfully change their election rules. And I saw that all along the way, where they were changing the rules of things because, you don't want to go out and expose yourself to the pandemic. Pandemic. Pandemic epidemic. And they were using that as an excuse. We all know that the coronavirus, whatever you believe about the severity of the coronavirus, it was used as a political tool by both sides, in a sense. One side says there's not that much to it. Go out and vote. The other side says, you can't go out and vote. You have to stay home. And it's safer if you stay home. At least up until the last week or so before the election, when they said there's not a chance that if you mail in your ballot now, it's going to make it in time. So you got to go out to the polls now. But wear your mask. So while it's unsafe for months to try to push the mail-in voting thing, it suddenly becomes safe enough to go do if you haven't sent in your mail-in ballot yet. Oh, the unspoken, only if you're voting for Biden. Now, the experts, the fourth thing, the experts in election law were quick to dismiss the likelihood of the 9 Supreme Court justices even taking the case at all. And so Texas is suing in these battleground states. Ken Paxton announced this lawsuit just yesterday in the U.S. Supreme Court to invalidate presidential election results in these 4 key swing states that helped secure Democrat Joe Biden's victory over President Donald Trump. And the unusual lawsuit, and it's very unusual, which was filed directly to the Supreme Court, asserts that unlawful election results, quote-unquote unlawful election results in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan all of which Biden won, should be declared unconstitutional. Why? Legal experts dismiss the case as political theater without precedent in American history. This is what some of my friends are doing. They're just dismissing it offhand. It's because they don't want it to be so. But is this theater? If there is genuinely a constitutional crisis in the election, should that be presented? Should it be looked at before the election is certified? So the filing argues that those states, those 4 states, used the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to unlawfully change their election rules through executive fiat or friendly lawsuits, thereby weakening ballot integrity. That's their claim. And any electoral college votes cast by such presidential electors appointed in those states cannot be counted. Not yet. Texas asked the High Court to rule on this. That's yesterday's presentation to the Supreme Court. We haven't heard yet what's happened to that. Now, the Lone Star State's attempt to discount other states' electoral votes follows a slew of long-shot legal challenges with similar goals that have been brought in lower courts by Trump's campaign and other attorneys. And those lawsuits have repeatedly failed to invalidate the ballots cast for Biden. Now, they're not saying that those ballots weren't cast, but they're saying there was impropriety. There was impropriety in not following the rules. There was legislative impropriety in changing the rules, and which really favored only one side, and the side that was concerned about it, about the coronavirus. So it's really, and it's doing nothing to look into the fact that there were improprieties in the vote counts, in the ballots that arrived late, in the ballots that did not have signatures, the ballots which they're supposed to have, the ballots that came and they were pristine. They weren't folded to put into the envelopes. So there was no folding of the ballots. How did they get these ballots without them being unfolded from the envelopes in which they were mailed in? There were thousands and thousands of those. Where did they come from? But this is the impropriety. Now, the claims in the Texas lawsuit are false and irresponsible. Now, that's what Georgia's Deputy Secretary of State, Jordan Fuchs, said. And Fuchs can go Fuchs himself. He said in a fiery statement shortly after Paxton announced the legal action. He said, they're false and irresponsible. And Texas alleges that there are 80,000 forged signatures on absentee ballots in Georgia alone. But they don't bring forward a single person who this happened to. That's because it didn't happen, Fuchs' statement said. Now, Michigan attorney Dana Nessel called the suit a publicity stunt and beneath the dignity of Paxton's office. And Josh Cowell, the Attorney General of Wisconsin, said in a statement, the case was genuinely embarrassing. Now, why are they saying these things? These are people that supported Biden, or at least supported getting Trump out of office. So they need to say anything they can to make sure that they let the country know that this is stupid. It's frivolous. These are just a few people, a handful of people that are saying this. You got another huge handful of people over here that's saying it's the opposite. Who's right? So experts in election law were also very quick to dismiss the likelihood of the 9 Supreme Court justices taking the case at all. Paul Smith, he's a professor at Georgetown University Law Center, who has argued voting rights cases since the Supreme Court said the case was, get this, wait for this technical terminology, wacko. All right. There's a whole system in Pennsylvania and other states for contesting the election. That's all been done, said Smith, who also serves as vice president of litigation and strategy at the Nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center. I don't think the Supreme Court will have interest in this, he says. Now, the professor added that Texas could run into trouble in proving that it has grounds to sue, known in legal terms as a standing to sue. Now, it's totally unprecedented, the idea that one state would, at the Supreme Court level, claim that other states' votes were cast in the wrong way. That's never happened, he said. What is the injury to the state of Texas because Pennsylvania's votes were cast for Mr. Biden instead of Mr. Trump? There's no connection here. Well, folks, I'm not a legal expert at Georgetown University Law Center, but I will tell you something that's a truth. Yes, you could be from Texas and make a claim that the votes in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania affect your state because of the outcome of the election. So that I would disagree with him on that level. Now, Rick Hasen, he's an election law expert at the University of California, Irvine, wrote on his popular legal blog that the suit was utter garbage. Now, by the way, I want you to know, you're seeing all these negative comments about this? I'm pulling this information from CNBC, from NBC Network, which I believe is fully in the pocket of the left. So this is the way they're presenting this case. It has no say over how other states choose their elections, he said. Now, Paxton wrote in the brief that Texas has standing because of its interest in which party controls the Senate, which it says represents the states, plural. Now, while Americans likely care more about who's elected president, the states have a distinct interest in who is elected vice president, and thus who can cast tie-breaking votes in the Senate. Now, right now, did you know that if they do not win these runoff votes in early January for the 2 Senate seats, if the Republicans lose those elections, they will not have control in the Senate, and it will be Kamala Harris will have the deciding vote if there's ever a tie. Now, is that what the country wants? If they do, that's what will happen. And by the way, this is probably a very good place for me to interject. I'm not mad or angry that Joe Biden won the election. There's winners and there's losers. As we quoted to people who were complaining about Trump being elected the first time, is sometimes you lose an election. Sometimes you win. I'm all for that. I'm all for constitutional elections. And if Joe Biden won, then Joe Biden won. He's the president of the United States. The problem is, for me, is that I don't believe he was actually elected to the office. So what do I do with that? On a personal level, I'm going to have to come to terms with how I look at Joe Biden should he actually be seated as president. I'm going to look at him and say, I think he was an illegitimate president. But isn't that what we were complaining about on the right? About Trump all these years because people were claiming he was an illegitimate president? He won the Electoral College vote last time, even though he didn't win the popular vote. But this time around, he got 14 million more votes than he got the first time around, and still lost. So it's an interesting thing. Joe Biden got, well, we won't get into all that breakdown again. You know where we've been because we've talked about this before. Now, the injury is particularly acute in 2020, they're saying, where a Senate majority often will hang on the vice president's tie-breaking vote because of the nearly equal, and depending on the outcome of the Georgia runoff elections in January, possibly equal balance between the political parties. Now, the lawsuit against the 4 states comes on this pivotal deadline in the election certification process, known as the safe harbor threshold. Do you know what that is? After which Congress is compelled to accept certain certified states' rights. And it's all about this safe harbor threshold. 6 days later, electors in the Electoral College are going to cast their votes, finalizing Biden's win. The suit is also asking the Supreme Court to extend that December 14th deadline to allow these investigations to be completed before there is an official electoral vote making Joe Biden the official president-elect. Now, in most cases, the Supreme Court only hears cases from lower courts that have been appealed. In cases between 2 or more states, however, the court has original jurisdiction. It generally requires 4 justices to agree to even hear the case. So that's what you would have to have for this case to be heard by the Supreme Court. Now, the suit comes as Paxton faces an FBI criminal investigation related to alleged efforts to help a wealthy campaign donor. Now, the investigation was confirmed by the Associated Press after 7 senior lawyers in Paxton's office claimed to authorities in September that Paxton was guilty of abusing his office. Now, all 7 have since been fired. I wonder why. They were put on leave or resigned. This spurred a whistleblower lawsuit from several of them, and Paxton has denied any wrongdoing in that, of course, which is what he would do. So the case is not the first over the election to reach the justices of the Supreme Court, though the court has yet to deliver a substantial ruling for either side. And in another suit, and by the way, the denial to hear yesterday's case was not a substantial ruling on either side, saying, no, we're not going to hear this on nullifying the Pennsylvania vote, and to put out an injunction against that vote. In another suit, the court could soon weigh in. Republican U.S. Mike Kelly is a representative of Pennsylvania, and a Trump ally, is challenging virtually all of the state's mail-in ballots, urging the court to nullify millions of votes. Now, what the task ahead of them is to prove that those votes should be legally nullified. That's the task ahead of them. Now, Biden's projected to win 306 Electoral College votes, 36 more than needed to beat Trump, who's set to receive 232 electoral votes. But Trump is refusing to concede to Biden. I don't know, maybe he listened to Hillary Clinton's advice to Joe Biden, never concede. But the president, more than a month after the election day, continues to insist that he won the race while spreading a wide array of, as of yet, unproven conspiracy theories that purport to show the electoral or voter fraud. Now, it says in here, they editorialize, they put falsely insist that he won, and a wide array of unproven conspiracy theories. Is this the way the news should treat that? Or should they say that he continues to insist he won and he purports to show electoral or voter fraud? That's journalistic. Putting in the other ones is the other words, falsely insist. Well, I guess CNBC has come to the determination to let the nation know who listens to their news that Donald Trump is falsely insisting that he won. There you go. Now, the president is also pressuring these swing state officials to take action toward overturning the results of their elections. Trump has heaped criticism on Georgia's Republican governor, Brian Kemp, while angrily demanding that he call a special session of Georgia's state legislature in order to appoint pro-Trump electors. And Trump has personally reached out to Kemp and the Pennsylvania House Speaker, Brian Cutler, according to reporting from the Washington Post and others. And in November, Trump hosted Republican lawmakers in Michigan at the White House for a meeting. And those lawmakers said after the event that they had no plans to replace Biden's electors. So, at a COVID vaccine summit at the White House on Tuesday, yesterday, Trump once again falsely claimed that he won the race. And this is CNBC putting in the word falsely. Let's see whether or not somebody has the courage, whether it's a legislature or legislatures, plural of plural states, whether it's a justice of the Supreme Court or a number of justices of the Supreme Court, to do what everybody in this country knows is right. And I got to tell you, I think most of the people who deny that Trump has any validity to his claims, they know he's probably right. So even before the election, but they don't care because they're getting him out because they don't like him. Now, even before the election, Trump predicted that the Supreme Court would likely decide the results of the race and pressed the GOP-controlled Senate to confirm Justice Amy Coney Barrett to the bench in time for it to do so. I think that's false. I don't think that's why he put her in the Supreme Court. Now, in recent weeks, as his legal challenges have floundered, Trump has acknowledged that he's unlikely to overturn the results of the 2020 election in court. Well, the problem is it's hard to get into the Supreme Court, Trump told Fox News last month in his first full interview since his November 3rd defeat. And so I've got the best Supreme Court advocates, the lawyers that want to argue the case if it gets there. They said it's very hard to get a case up there, Trump added. Can you imagine Donald Trump, President of the United States, files a case and I probably can't get a case? That's what Trump said. So there you go, folks. There's the current events on these lawsuits. We're not going to stick to this stuff for very many days in a row. That's not what we do here. But I thought it might be good to give you an update on that current event, how those cases are going. So be prepared to have President Biden be the President of the United States. And you know what? Nothing to be pissed off about. It's the way our country works. That doesn't mean that there's not impropriety that took place. You tell me, as I've said to many people who've brought things like this up, tell me the government's never lied to us before. There you go. All right, folks, it's time to go. We're over time. Thanks for being here. I'm going to take a 23-hour break. We'll be back tomorrow. So sit tight. Have a good night.